Welcome back. Now, in less than a fortnight's time, we could see a new Prime Minister, of course, a whole new government, and perhaps a fundamental change in the balance of power between Scotland and the rest of the United Kingdom. This election campaign has been about the regions and nations of the United Kingdom, made clear by that seven-way leaders debate. But while the Scottish National Party has been grabbing the headlines, what of Wales and her nationalist party, Plaid Cymru? Well, I'm joined now by its leader, Leanne Wood, and a very good morning to you, Ms Wood. Well, you know, I drew there the comparisons with the SNP. We saw that leaders' debate, how well you got on with Nicola Sturgeon. Could we regard you, really, your party, as coattailing the SNP? You're a lesser version of them and you want what they want.
We do share a lot of common ground with the SNP and also with the Greens in England, and that's why we've said that we'll cooperate with those two parties in the event of a hung parliament, which is looking increasingly likely. It seems to me that the two main parties have not done enough to convince people to give them a mandate, and so in that eventuality our three parties stand to hold the balance of power, and if we do, then we'll work on our common priorities.
But I mean, you know, you accepted that. Is it whatever Nicola says then? You know, I don't know how often you're in contact, but when it comes, obviously we know about the different aspirations for your nations, but beyond that, you agree totally with Nicola?
Well, we don't agree on everything entirely. We're different parties representing two different countries that are on different stages of their devolution journey, so our needs are different, but there is a lot of common ground between us. We want to end austerity, we want to rebalance power and wealth throughout these islands, benefiting not just people in Scotland and Wales, but people in England, outside of London and the southeast as well. So our common platform can benefit people right throughout these islands. And we also want to end trident replacement, which will provide additional money in the coffers to spend on public services.
But in Wales, I mean, you know, given that you're not as powerful as the SNP is in Scotland, don't you need a bigger tent? I mean, for instance, do you have to be left-wing to be a Welsh nationalist?
You don't have to be left-wing.
Well, you have to be left-wing if you're going to be a member of Plaid Cymru.
Well, Plaid Cymru is a left-of-centre party, there's no doubt about that, but I think the
So you're saying to right-leaning nationalists, we don't want you?
No, I'm not saying that at all, but the centre of political gravity in Wales is to the left, generally, I would argue. There's definitely a feeling among people in Wales that public services are important, for example, and that wealth should be redistributed more fairly, and I think we reflect the general political feeling of people in Wales in that sense.
And do you also, like the SNP, they've had one, do you want a referendum?
Eventually, yes, but we want to hold that referendum at the time when people are ready for it, and I don't think we could do that tomorrow because of the parlous situation in our economy, and that's why Plaid Cymru's manifesto in this election is all about creating those measures that we need to build up the Welsh economy, bring the tools to do the job to the National Assembly and the finances as well, and that's why we're calling for parity with Scotland.
Okay, well, let's put you into some coalition negotiations. What does Leanne Wood go in to the room with her first demand? Is it just give us some cash, give us £1 billion?
Well, the financial situation is something that desperately needs addressing. Wales has been disadvantaged financially since the Barnett formula was invented in 1978, so year on year we've lost out. And since the referendum in Scotland, the game has changed completely. The three leaders of the established Westminster parties went to Scotland and promised to keep the Barnett formula for Scotland, thereby locking in the financial disadvantage for Wales. So our call for parity with Scotland would deliver an additional £1.2 billion to the Welsh block grant, which out of £740 billion, which is the UK's budget, is not a great claim. And considering what's happened in Northern Ireland recently, when an additional £1 billion was granted to Northern Ireland, then it strikes me that Wales has been too quiet in the past, and we need to get more forceful in terms of our demands. And what I would like to see is all political parties and politicians in Wales get behind Plaid Cymru on this call, so that we can get additional resources to build up our public services and improve our economic situation.
And if you got that kind of agreement or something heading towards it from Conservative negotiators, would you accept that, or you wouldn't even talk to the Conservatives? Are you exactly the same as the SNP?
We wouldn't prop up a Conservative government. I've said very clearly that...
But if they're the largest party, you won't even talk to them?
No, we won't, because In Wales, we've never elected a Conservative government. We've never given them a mandate, and they've wreaked havoc on our communities, going back to the 1980s and the pit closure programme. So there are very strong feelings in Wales against the Tories, and I'm quite keen to work with others to enable a government that is an alternative to the Tories. And just remember, in a hung parliament scenario, there's been a lot of talk about who Labour might form an agreement with, but we also have to remember what the alternative is to that. It's unlikely that the Conservatives will get enough votes on their own. Who will they go in with? And there's the risk of going in again with the Liberal Democrats, of course, but the greater risk is a UKIP-Tory coalition, and most people I know in Wales are horrified by that thought.
Last question, how are the Welsh lessons going? Are you fluent yet? I know you're
not fluent.
Trying to catch up.
I'm not fluent.
I know you're busy.
I find it very difficult, if I'm honest with you, but I'm still progressing, and I'm not going to give up.
Well, I'm sure there's plenty of people who can give you a hand in the party. Leanne Wood, very good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. The leader of Plaid Cymru there. Now, coming up next, the biggest constitutional crisis since the abdication of Edward VIII. I'll be speaking to the Scottish National Party's Alex Salmond.